really don't know what that looks like, what the community wants. You know, we can speculate and say we want adult programming or adult continuing education or early morning care for children, after school programs, before school programs, summer programs, daycare in general. We've heard from a lot of people that daycare is a real issue in Belchertown. There's waiting lists. So we can speculate, but it would be good to hear from our residents. We're hoping for a bigger crowd, but that doesn't mean that you don't have viable things and important things to say. So this is a listening session. So we're here to hear what you know, what you've heard from your neighbors, your friends. I can tell you that the select board is in support of trying to bring more programming to Belchertown, no matter how that looks. Our recreation department is also very interested in this. Our police department, the chief, I have a letter here that he is also offering his support for a Boys and Girls Club in Belchertown. He's looking for a safe and structured environment where our youth can engage in meaningful activities, receive mentorship, and access educational and recreational opportunities. I mean, these are all things that we should be providing for our youth to keep them out of trouble. And that's in part to his commitment to community-oriented policing. These partnerships are what make Belchertown a better place. So that's a pretty good summary of what he wrote. So with that, I'm ready to hear what people have to say.
Yeah. Do you want to speak to space, Steve? I would speak to it, but you would cover me, so I'll let you.
Well, yeah, I think
I'm more optimistic than he is. So we make a good pair.
Dan and I have had a polite argument for a few months now about space. We do have, the town does have vacant spaces, unutilized spaces, 6 and 8 Berkshire Avenue. We have the former Tagil building. None of those buildings are move-in ready. There's going to be a considerable expense to get them move-in ready, and likely between identifying funding sources, permitting, design, engineering, bidding, contract execution, and actual construction, we're talking years before we're going to be into those buildings. And I know, the guy to my right here says I'm being pessimistic, but that's the reality in today's world when it comes to municipal construction. And that's not only dependent on what happens with a Boys and Girls Club or any other potential tenant or partnership that we find. That's a reality. If we partnered with a Boys and Girls Club, there's a long process that goes along with that too. That could take years before they would even decide to move here. And that's not nothing to do with Belchertown. It's just, they have a lot of work to do too. So when we look at these things, it's a long process, and I would caution anybody to think that we have an answer for tomorrow. Likely, if we were going to partner with an organization, we'd be looking to utilize existing space after hours, before hours, most likely in our schools. We would have classrooms set aside for these programs, or we would transport our children to the various places. So those are the things that we would be looking at. But all of this needs to be worked out. There is a lot to do, and we just want to hear what people are really looking for. I think that's the key, right?
You want them to talk.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
There are several buildings, I think, that are under consideration. Two that come to mind for me is Tagil, which Steve and I were just talking about. And that's got a lot of work that's got to be done, that's going to be brought back online. I think sooner or later, who goes down there? It's open for speculation at this point. That would be probably the best place at this point for a Boys and Girls Club. Although, frankly, I would like to take in the old high school because it has basketball courts and playing fields and so forth. But Tagil has its advantages too, and we've also been talking, I've also been talking with the library, which at the moment, as most of you know, back 10 years ago, well, 15 years ago now, the library trustees came before town meeting and wanted to have an override to add a 20,000 square foot addition to Clap Memorial Library over there. And they had a lot of good arguments for it, but the town did not see fit to come up with $10 million to put it on that building at that time. So I've been talking a little bit with them. They haven't been terribly cooperative at the moment, so I don't know whether they'd be interested in moving down there. There's also the old elementary school, which I think is near available for possible use. I see the school committee just asked to close down that building. I don't know what they're going to do with it once it's closed down, except turn it over to the town, which then we'll have to maintain it with money that the school's not willing to give up. But that would be a place to start a little faster than Tadgel if that was the opportunity. So there are some opportunities there. I'm not as pessimistic as Steve is. He's probably more realistic than I am. I'm more opportunistic. And, so you're getting the best of both worlds from the two of us here. But those would be two facilities that would be available. Another question that I'm sure is going to come up, and I wish the Boys and Girls Club people were here to present the information, and that's how you go ahead and fund a Boys and Girls Club. The local Boys and Girls Club was asked to be here, and they backed out at the last minute. I think they were going to send an observer. I don't know if there's an observer here or not.
There is.
Somebody's smiling.
But he's just an observer.
Huh?
He's just an observer.
Just an observer, so he won't say anything. There is information, the best I could find to print out from their website there, which also shows some of the funding things that they have developed over the years. We can't compare ourselves to Adobe because Ludlow's had a long tradition of having a Boys and Girls Club and has developed resources and financial income that would take us quite a while to build up to. My first blush is as the town would probably provide the building and the basic maintenance for the building. I think they've got to do it anyway just to keep it from being mothballed. If you went down and looked at Tadgel and went through there now and the school's moved out, the roofs are leaking, things are going bad in there. And going to the administration building, the old state school, plaster is actually falling off the walls. It would be my hope that the town would not let any mothballed building get to that level of depreciation. But be that as it may, that's something that's beyond the discussion here. From what I see at the Ludlow Boys and Girls Club, the town seems to be had provided the basic facility and maintains the basic facility for the Boys and Girls Club, as well as the community center, which was sort of my dream for the old high school. So I would expect the town would provide the building and maintain the building. As far as operational funds, that's something that I think the townspeople have to work with. There's no funds in the town account, certainly. I don't think I want to be willing to go back to town meeting for another override. I've got too many already, and more to come probably. But they have done a good job of getting campaigns going to raise funds from the community. I think their business community is very supportive of the Boys and Girls Club from what I can see. And I think a lot of the money that they raise allows them to carry on the club. There also are fees, membership fees and so forth, which they collect from users, user fees. I doubt if those go very far and cover the overall cost. They have quite a labor pool, which is identified here from their webpage, if anybody wants to look at it afterwards. But that is going to have to be a major consideration of whoever takes over and whatever townspeople take over and push forward on this Boys and Girls Club, if there really is an interest in the town. When I first put stuff out on the webpage, I had 40 people reply how wonderful it is. I look out here tonight and say, where are those 40 people? And then I had asked, I need some people who are going to do the work. I didn't get but 3 responses to that one. So I'm not sure in depth whether the town really is ready for or really wants to support a Boys and Girls Club. And that's one of the things we were hoping to feel out here tonight. Unfortunately, God has said this is my day, and it rained. And that I'm sure is causing people not to show up. But I don't know the depth of interest of the people at the town from Belchertown. Personally, I'll never see it, but I've been working for kids in this town for as long as I've been in this town. That's 55 years since I moved here from Michigan, and in the schools and outside of the schools. And I think a Boys and Girls Club would be tremendous in this day and age, where there's so many people who are working, who have nobody to stay with the children in the afternoons, or even the evenings and the weekends. And of course, summer used to be hell for us. My wife and I both worked, 3 kids. What do we do with them in the summer? We tried a lot of tricks, but none of them really worked. And so we need programs that will cover that. Some of the recreation department have been trying to do that. But I think that we need to have something much more structured and available than we have on town funds going into that program at this point in time. So that's why I'm motivated to push for this. I think it would be a great asset to the town. Certainly in the past, when we've invested in our students and our youth in this town, it's been a great feedback to the town. I just wrote an article there the other day describing how the town grew in the 80s and 90s, and as a result of that, the town went from 4,500 to 16 or 15,000 people. But also the house values in this town went up because we had schools, they had good quality schools, we had excellent teachers all the time. And because of that, people wanted to move into Belchertown. They built here, they expanded the town, they supported the town. And I think things like good schools or good services for boys and girls make our town much more valuable and worthwhile to the residents that live here. My wife just happens to be a realtor, and I blame her for all the problems we have in town. But that's beside the point. She's retired now, so it doesn't matter. So anyway, that's just some opening remarks on my part. I wish we had 30 or 40 people here tonight. I can understand why we don't. I do have a list here for people to sign up and leave their names. And I guess I particularly would like to know what you all feel. Are you ready for a Boys and Girls Club? It's not going to be easy. Steve will give you the downside. You're good at that. But it means we got to go out and figure out how to fund it. We've got buildings that have to be adjusted. They won't be ideal. They won't have a gym that they would have had in the old high school. But it is there. And is the town ready to do this? It's a gigantic leap. I've dreamed of this since my kids were before school. That's 55 years ago. It used to be where the gas station is over in the corner of 21 and 202 that I dreamed of a Boys and Girls Club or a big Y on that site over there years and years ago, but it didn't happen. That may not happen now, I don't know. So let's open it up for discussion. If it's your questions, let's hear your answers, your interest. Where are we going? Who's first? Silence.
I'll start. I'm a teacher in town. I have 4 kids in town as well. And I don't know, I just feel like I moved here about 12, 13 years ago. And in those 12, 13 years, for the most part, it's just getting the slow erosion of family services. I will say recreation has done a lot and boosted its services, but like, I mean, even in the schools, I mean, the art budget used to be $6,000 a year for arts, and now it's down to $2,400. And we're finding ways to like chip away at the service we provide. The family center's gone, and I feel like at some point, yeah, we're no longer catering our community to the kids anymore. And I mean, I see right now my students, I teach in middle school. I mean, the thing to do after school is go to Dunkin'. You know, that's where that's our after school care, are the minimum wage workers at Dunkin' Donuts. You know, I mean, or the library. But the library does a fantastic job. But I mean, in the size of the building we know, is too small to support a lot of programming. Their teen section is the space between two bookshelves. That's their teen area. And I think, I just feel like we're missing an opportunity on that. When we are very rarely able to offer programs after school for kids, I've done like an after school ultimate frisbee club and stuff like that. We get 30, 40 kids show up for it, because if you have an opportunity for something where you don't have to have the transit, for parents aren't have to drive their kids around after school to get them to things, if we have something centrally located in town that can be an opportunity for kids to socialize, get off their phones, and for parents to continue working or whatever they need to do, I think kids really capitalize on that. Once we add in, again, I think right now the recreation department does a great job, but as it stands, if I'm trying to bring 4 kids around, it becomes I'm over here, I'm over there, and I have work, and my wife has work too, and how do we make that work? So I think a Boys and Girls Club, a community center, a Y, something like that as an opportunity for my children, maybe someday, or the children like my children in the middle schoolers that I hope to teach in the future, to have something else. Sorry? I have 2, 4, just turned 7, and 9.
Okay, you're still in the early stage.
Yeah. So.
Is your wife work, or?
Yeah, she's a teacher in Amherst, actually. So, yeah. So, and I can see the differences in like how the communities do this too. I mean, and Amherst is struggling as well with some of this, but they have the Banks Community Center, and they have other kinds of opportunities for kids over there that I would love to see.
Can be home at afternoons when you get home?
Yeah, we are fortunate in that. I mean, we can get she gets home at 4:30. I'm home by 3:30.
There's a lot of parents who work, both of them work till 5 o'clock.
Yeah, right.
I know my kids were going on, my wife and I both worked at the university at the time. And we didn't get home at 6 o'clock at night. Our kids were getting home at 2:30, 3:30. And unfortunately, we never had much problem, but there's a whole gap in there in the afternoon. And I was reading some recent research here. The question was, how do you get kids to give up their cell phones? And they did research on it, and 80% of them said if they had been able to be with their friends, they wouldn't have needed the cell phones. But they had no place to go or do after school or free time to be with their friends. And God knows Belchertown's got 57 square miles. When you leave your friends at school, it's pretty hard to get together after school with them. So I'm sorry, I'm taking over the conversation here. For somebody else? It doesn't look like we really need one.
Yeah.
Well, there's one vote, okay.
I don't see the downside. I mean, I know there's cost and all that you figured out, but I don't see the downside of having a Boys and Girls Club or other kinds of resources for the children in our town. I mean, it's, I'm a social worker. I did a lot more work with children in the past. Always referred kids and parents to the resources of Boys and Girls Club in Springfield or Westfield or other towns where there. It just seems like, yeah, and I think it would be really great for the town.
With 9 to 5?
I'm sorry?
9 to 5?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So your afternoons are uncovered at home.
Yeah, well, I'm a grandma, so I'm past that. But, you know.
I ask her, what do you do with your kids during the summer when you're working?
I think the biggest question a lot of people in town will have is how will it be funded? That does seem to be a concern. I know we just went through the override for the schools, and that was.
I would not expect the town to be able to fund it. I think that would have to come from parents and from fundraising
Yeah.
and donations. So that's pretty much what law goes. Of course, they have a much bigger business population than Belchertown does. There would have to be fundraising in addition to fees.
So I've heard from a lot of parents who want more daycare options in town.
We've had to transport. We've done South Hadley, we've done Granby and Belchertown. So I drive out to South Hadley and then to Belchertown to drop off daycare and pass, especially postcode. Yeah. Belchertown day schools, wait list is, I think, over a year now. We want to get it pushed on day school.
So what would the town's response be to provide more daycare? Like how would there be something the town would sponsor or encourage?
Well, I think
promoting?
that's where the interest from select board has come from, is partnering with an organization like the Y or Boys and Girls Club to provide more
To
daycare.
provide daycare.
That's a service that they actually provide. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that might be something parents would be very interested in contributing to then.
And I don't think you can necessarily judge the interest by how many people show up at a meeting, because I think it speaks to how hard it is to, it's hard for people who have families to come out at night for a meeting in the middle of the work week, so I agree something like this would be a benefit to the town. It's really hard for families these days, and so providing services like this it seems vital given the needs in the town. And so I don't know if there's grant funding or things like that can be explored, but
I even think, like, just thinking back to, like, the override, I mean, as a parent during the override vote, how the amazing sense of community we got from having, like, that daycare space so we could all go to the town meeting.
Yep.
And, like, having high schoolers running that was, like, such a neat thing to have happen. And could get more adults involved here. I mean, right now I have 2 kids at home with a fever. My wife was like, "You're going to this meeting? Oh my God!" And then so I just said, "Bye, everybody," and just left. But if I was a single parent, I'd forget about it. Or if my wife worked nights, like my sister does, and my brother-in-law's at home with his kids, right? And he wanted to come, but he couldn't. I don't know. I think that having a center like that could allow people to be more engaged in the community, provide part of those opportunities.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I definitely don't think that it's representative of the interest of the community, looking at how many people are here tonight. I'm on another committee, and we were doing a lot of community engagement events last year to figure out what the people in this town wanted and felt like they needed. And we had an event that had about 50 people there, and there wasn't a moment of silence. Like, people kept raising their hands, they kept sharing throughout the whole entire meeting. And the one thing that they kept coming back to is that we need a community center. We need something to provide our kids with different opportunities, especially after school, so they're not just going to Dunkin' Donuts. And so there was a lot of interest, but that is the thing that has been coming up between all the different groups in town for a long time now. So I think that this listening session is tough because it's at 7:30. I'm a single mom. My daughter's at dance right now. Luckily, her brother's going to pick her up, but weeknights around this time, you're not going to get the people who really need the services to show up. I mean, it's very difficult, especially at 7:30. It's so close to getting ready for bedtime and all of that. So I think that after this, if another survey goes out, or if something goes out to engage the parents in this town in a way where they can say, yes, I would be willing to volunteer in this way or in this aspect, I think that would be really telling. You'd probably get a pretty good response if you ask them, specific things. So
That's encouraging. My wife and I started, we came here in 1970, the first day school for preschoolers in the Methodist Church. That was 50 years ago. And that's run by parents. I think it is still again today. And it's the parents who have kept that going, and it's run by fees and by contribution from the church on their space over there. It's lasted all of these 50 years. My point is, and I've seen this so many times in this town, that I've really always been impressed, and that is parents hold a lot of influence. I think of Gloria Fox. She moved out of town now, but her kids were 7, 8, 9 years old. There was no playing area, no play field. no gym, outdoor gym or anything like that. And by God, Gloria got out there and she started getting every parent she could find, got them motivated. There was a fellow by the name of Leathers who was building all of these outdoor things around other towns over here. Got him over here, $40,000 plus labor. And by God, Gloria said, we're gonna get this thing built. And she did. She got us out there. I remember one Saturday and Sunday, it rained like hell. And we're out there with electric saws, electric drills in those days that were plug-in. And I looked over and there's the extension cord with 3 things stuck in it, sitting in a puddle of water. But she got us out there. She got the parents all over town to come out there and do the hard work of lifting and putting the equipment together and setting up. And that kind of determination, but you've got to have it come from the parents. I mean, the selectmen got a lot of things on their plate. They aren't going to start going out looking for more things to do. The older people here don't want to pay any more taxes. Anybody says something new in town, oh my God, more taxes. Even though in the long run it brings the property values way up. Another example of that was the football team at the high school. When my kids went through school here, all 3 of them, there wasn't any football team. We didn't have one. Well, some parents got together and said, my God, we're going to have a football team. And they got it roused up and they got the pressure from the administration. And by God, we've got a football team now. So it really takes that kind of synergism to get people out and get things done. Otherwise, it's just going to sit there. My take. How about over here? You got anything?
I just came to listen. I got one kid that's of age that would definitely use some of the services. I have an 11-year-old boy, and my other son's going to Holyoke Community College, and my wife wanted to come, but we both can't go at the same time. So yeah, I'm just here to gather information and report, I suppose.
What kind of support do you think the town's going to provide?
Definitely more kids' activities. And I've used the services at the Ludlow one before with my other child. And it's a really good thing for the community, so I definitely support that. And just here to find out what we can do to help support this kind of thing. So I posted it on Facebook. Where is everybody? Hoping my neighbors or whoever would show up, but I guess not. Everyone's busy, okay.
Well, they're busy and the weather certainly didn't help tonight, so we can take that into consideration. But any other input from the silent crowd out there? Come on.
I don't have too much to say. I just think, like myself, it would be a good idea, just as someone who's grown up here, young adult now, 2 younger sisters. Not a lot of after-school stuff, like for kids, especially if you have parents working, for younger kids especially. I know my sisters have definitely reported to me that the Duncan is definitely like the hangout spot for kids. So I can see this definitely being like an asset to the town. I know there's a lot of people who would need it.
Thank you. Any bells?
Is it possible to get some of the other organizations like the PTO, or does that, if that still exists, involved in trying to get more, and the committee that you work with to try to bring more people in? Because it does seem like people are interested, it seems like there's a need, but to get more feedback or support. So.
I think there's lots of opportunity. The question is, where does the center force come from? I mean, are all you willing to get together and be on a steering committee and go out and get some of these other groups involved in it, or talk with the selectmen, or get other people involved? That's what it's going to take. I disagree with Steve. I think very easily next year we could set up a Boys and Girls Club in the old elementary school, which the superintendent is closing. So I'll have a building somewhere. I think you got at least 8 classrooms there, probably more, Steve. You went through that. You know how many classrooms are there down there?
I think there needs to be more conversations with the Boys and
Oh,
Girls
yeah,
Club before we get
But that's
to
enough.
that point. But
And if there's no pressure to do it, it's not gonna happen. And it's gotta be people like yourselves who are willing to get out, whether it's on Saturday morning, Sunday afternoon, or Wednesday night. Have gotta be the motivating force to bring something like this to fruition. And if we don't have that, I can guarantee you it's not gonna happen. Because there's nobody out there looking for more work to do as far as people who are already involved in town activities. So it's gotta come from the parents or those who are going to benefit from it the most, and grandparents too, who have an interest. I know one friend of mine is babysitting her grandchildren every day, and she can't get out and do what she wants to do because she's babysitting, because the parents are working. But if it doesn't come from townspeople, it's just not gonna happen. Would you say, Steve?
yeah, there needs to be support. And, how do we get from where we are today to gauging the level of support that we have in our community? I mean, we're going to be publishing another survey. I mentioned that earlier. People need to see it. We do have a lot of people that subscribe to our newsletter and check our website regularly, that have followed our Facebook page, all those normal places where we advertise surveys. The Sentinel, ECTV picks these things up. But that's still only going to reach a certain number of people. A lot of people don't engage themselves in the community. So it does take a lot of word of mouth. People at any time can send an email to the select board, write a letter. Those things all go into files, and that's how we're going to gauge these things. And I think the more interest that we see, the more momentum we're going to build towards these, because at the end of the day, these organizations are businesses, and just like any other business, they want to know how much traffic is going by the site, how much their services are going to be utilized, how much their customer base is going to grow. They're going to run projections. It's no different than if we were talking about a new gas station or another supermarket. There's a lot of business decisions that are going to need to be made before we get a commitment from any organization to bring these services in. If we had the financial wherewithal to do this within our existing departments, the recreation department, it might move a little faster, but we've all seen what happened with our budgets, with overrides, inflation, health insurance costs, everything's going up. And there is a limit to how much more taxpayers can tolerate. So,
There's a couple of solar panels on the rooftops.
yeah, we can do that.
One of my favorites, fundraising.
So, I guess, just for everybody's information, 50 years ago when Dan moved here, he was my neighbor. And he, helped out. All of our neighbors got together in the summers to help with taking care of the kids. And Dan used to bring me to the town beach, so he's not going to give me any slack. He's just going to stay on this until I finally relent. So, but I owe him that because he was a part of my life when I was
I've known Steve since his mother used to drag him and his two brothers into church when they were 5 years old. So I go back a long way, and I've seen him go through the school system, and he's done pretty well from graduating from our school system. So he's a good example.
I would certainly, follow up tonight's meeting with Facebook posts of your own, with letters, with emails, see what kind of momentum you can build. We have quite a few people following our Facebook page, but it takes people to spread that, out. We can't do all of it on our own because we're not going to reach everybody. So.
I just have a quick question too. Thinking about the space and the Boys and Girls Club, is it something where it could be, like we said, like a community center / Boys and Girls Club? Because I think of this ideal situation, we could diversify who we're targeting, and we're not just going for the parents, and we're going for people between parents and people who are using the senior center. Like myself, how much would I love to go have a bridge night, or something like that, and have a youth opportunity happening at the same time. So I could have there's the Boys and Girls Clubs running programming, so that we can have a community
center where adults can actually mingle more than we have right now. I mean, I look at like the hallway upstairs, like the beard contest thing on the upstairs hallway in the town hall. Like, what kind of like little community events could we have that we can maybe be offered if we have a space? And the town hall somewhat serves as that space, but I think to have a space where there's children's events happening, adult events happening, and I think it could be a.
Yeah, there's things that I would like to see myself, you know, whether it be woodworking classes, cooking classes, you know, we have in the high school, there is a shop for, you know, they have a CNC machine. They have some pretty fancy stuff in there. You know, opening that up for adults would be great. And if that was coupled with after-school programs for children, that would be even better, you know, because you're right, that would help. And I've heard a lot tonight about our youth, and that's something I would like to know more about, you know, what type of adult programming would we like to see. The recreation department, the senior center, they offer a lot of stuff already. And maybe there's things that we can, as the town, can offer that we don't need to wait on because they could self-fund. You know, people want to do, you know, goat yoga, you know, those kinds of things, and, you know, hot yoga, there's all kinds of stuff. So we'll just have to try to figure that out. But yeah, I would like to see more adult programming too. There's a lot of people that, you know, have struggled with using computers or smartphones. I'm one of them, so I would certainly like somebody to show me all the capabilities of my smartphone. Those are, you know, evening programming that would be great to have. The senior center does some of that, you know, assistance with taxes, you know, there's all kinds of things. So anything is on the table. It doesn't have to be specific to a Y or a Boys and Girls Club or any other private organization. We can consider that. Our recreation department is very open to starting new programs, and I'm not just saying that because there's somebody here. They've done a tremendous amount of expansion of their programs over the years, and it really shows. It brings the community together. You know, having movies on the common, you know, stuff like that. It just, you know.
The recreation department, I think I watched it over the years. You know, nothing but a couple of volunteers who got teams together back in the 70s. They have grown to a certain extent, but they've always been hampered with not enough funds, because the town just hasn't had the funds to put into it. I know budget time after budget time, I've sat there when I was a selectman, and all these town groups are coming in and saying, we need money for this and this and this. Police chief come in, Bob and I used to come in and lay on the desk and say, I need this and this. He always got it. Recreation was always the last one to the trough. And the library and some other like that. So they never got the same kind of monies that other departments have gotten, and probably rightly so. But I always felt like they were the stepchildren of the departments in the town. They have a library, which is why I'm fighting for the library too. Because I think they're the ones that really provide the service for our students, for our young people, and probably mold them. I believe very strongly in what students' growth and learning takes place more out of the classroom than it does in the classroom. And I've seen that so many times, and that's why something like a Boys and Girls Club, where you can get them together and do things outside of the educational format, is a real learning experience, a real developmental experience for all of our kids. But the question, how do we get there? Well, we're going to get there as a group. Maybe you're going to be the nucleus, maybe not. That's going to begin to move that ball. And it's got to happen that way, or it isn't going to happen. Right, Steve?
You said it.
What's that down? It's the first time we've agreed all day.
Yeah. It's past my bedtime.
I know it is. Anybody have any ideas, or should we just abandon at this point? You want to form a committee?
I think the best order of business would be for me to report back to the select board and see if they want to form an exploratory committee for, you know, something to this effect. And if that's the case,
Yeah, I got a lot of committees they can't find members for, Steve.
well, that is the problem.
We got dozens of committees out there.
Well, you know, parents, sometimes they're a little bit more willing to jump in on stuff like this, you know.
Well, we've had a good discussion. I wish there were more people involved in it, but go back home and talk about it with your friends and neighbors, and you can always get a hold of me. Steve is too available for his own good. If you need any help or you want any help from us, but otherwise, I think we're
Well,
cool.
the select board has a meeting this coming Monday, so it wouldn't be at that meeting, but maybe in their next meeting, which would give us, 2.5 weeks. So if we all went back and talked to, friends, family, and gauged the interest, and specifically asked people, if they would be willing to be on a steering committee for this, that would be, valuable information for Steve to take back to the select board to show the level of interest that people have. So maybe that's the way we should go.
I don't think we have a meeting this Monday.
No, October 6th.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then October 20th,
Oh, right.
yes.
Scared me.
Sorry.
So yes, we would be
It's
looking
not every
at,
other week.
as soon as, the October 6th agenda is already pretty full. We'd be looking at October 20th.
That's the selectmen's agenda? That's the selectmen's agenda?
Yeah, and I think there may be one other source that I could potentially tap into. I have to think about this a little bit further, but
I think the selectmen are gonna give a lot of verbal support, but I don't think you're gonna get much more than that from all the things they've got on their plate right now that they're gonna dive into this. They don't need one more to add to their plate at this point in time, so I think it's gotta be, it's nice, it would be nice, and I'm sure you'll get a nice blessing from them, but they're not gonna do the work, right? No.
no, they have enough.
I don't think so. I think it's, maybe your group is a core group that could begin to form something like this. And,
You keep talking like that, Dan. People aren't going to show up to your meetings because you're volunteering them for committees.
gotta get it done, Steve. He's always you can't do it, I'm always you can't do it. Well, okay, I guess we beat the dog to death. Think about it, if we can be of any help. And I'd be glad to facilitate it. I think either Steve or I would be. And I know both of us feel very supportive of the idea, but we can't pull it off ourselves.
I'd be happy to put together a Google form if that would be helpful. I would be happy to put together a Google form if that would be helpful. Just something that people can share, people can fill out, just gauge their level of interest and specifically list different things. I have to think about that, but.
Of course, I've been beating the bushes on the forums out there trying to get people here. It's hard to communicate. In the old days, you called up the Sentinel, you put something in the Sentinel, and the next Thursday, everybody in town was reading it. And that day's gone by now. They don't even cover the town meeting, or any of the meetings with their reporters anymore. They always used to have reporters and meetings, committee meetings in the town here, but now they don't even do that. So you've got half a dozen different forums. You've got town stuff, but you can't put, there's just no central forum. Or I shouldn't use the word forum, it's redundant. But there's no vehicle by which everybody will get information in this town right at this point in time. Unless the sun suddenly wakes up and sees the readership go down. Which if you look at the recycle bin.
Just saying, I saw it in the one here.
Good.
So stop there.
There's a few of us that still read.
Yeah. I don't know if Facebook, so it's.
Okay, if nobody has anything more to add, think about it.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
You got two willing supporters up here, but you're the folks who gotta do it.
Thank you for bringing the